Frog God, Frog God.
Hi everyone, welcome Frog God fans. We are here today to speak with Mage, aka Sean King, and he is the lead developer for the World Anvil. I am one of your new tadpoles, Alice Peng, and with me is the other one, Brandon Powers. He's above me. So, World Anvil is a new project that Frog God Games is going to be announcing and promoting for the next few weeks, and we wanted to give you another sneak peek. So, Sean, tell us a little bit about that, if you don't mind.
So our World Anvil project is going to be the culmination of the Lost Lands setting book that we did a Kickstarter for last year, and that will be the foundation for all be able to have a complete index and searchable index for every element of the Lost Lands, from the regions, the world map, the currents on the map, all the way down to more of our latest adventures, all the way back to some of our earliest adventures in Necromancer games. And it will span across 4 different game systems since we've been in business. Currently, we are focused on 5th edition D&D and Swords and Wizardry. Pathfinder is accompanying that. And as we go through it and we are able to fill it out, D20 systems, games, and adventures are on there and listed, but are not currently filled in for adventures on our World Anvil.
Now, Sean, just for clarification, when you say Pathfinder, it's going to be Pathfinder First Edition because Frog God doesn't support Second Edition, correct?
Yes, it'll be first edition Pathfinder.
Awesome. Well, you were mentioning just before we loaded up that you are currently working on a specific section to for launch. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes, it's South Central Akados. Currently, it as a small area on the map, it has one of the most densely populated adventures and module areas on the world map, because it is where some of our bigger modules started, and it is a place that is touched by almost every system, and at least 2 adventures in our compilated Quest of Doom books to be able to run anything from a first level in Swords and Wizardry 5e and Pathfinder First Edition, all the way up to 15th to 17th level in those same systems, and go through it and be able to mix and match, starting in the Sword of Air and Wizard's Amulet, going all the way up to the Slumbering Czar and entering the Desolation, or traveling down to Zelkor's Ferry and playing around with a nice old wizard that loves to give players and characters treats and snacks and stay at the Bristleback Inn and possibly go down a well. What bad things can happen down a well that
No,
may or may not be tied to Lord of the Abyss? I mean, it's completely legit.
completely legit. Well, I was going to ask if people don't know much about this region, if you could give us a little bit of a breakdown, a little bit of an elevator pitch. I can speak really.
In Inside the region itself, you have Bard's Gate, done by Casey Christopherson, which is our large merchant trade city and also major city of intrigue. It goes all the way out to the Sinar Ocean and all the way west along the Great Trade Road, or the Tradeway, to the Grand Duchy of Reme. If you are heading east from Reme or Casterhag, which is the Blight adventure, you're going to probably end up somewhere within 100 miles of Bard's Gate. From Bard's Gate, the adventure module itself, you also have the Stoneheart Valley module, which goes in and around the Stoneheart Mountains, and you have both above ground and underground, and even in Cyclopean Deeps, a Underdark adventure set that can quite easily tie into any and every part of the region in South Central Akdos and also beyond South Central Akdos. Because if a tunnel runs for 200 miles from Bard's Gate to the middle of Stoneheart Mountains, why can't it take a left turn at Albuquerque and go into the Haunted Steppes beyond the Wizard's Wall? From Bard's Gate, you also have Stoneheart Valley and then Borderland Provinces, which are some of our most beloved and most loved adventures and modules because it has a numerous amount of random number generated tables for random encounters, things you might see, things you might encounter, things that might trip you up along the way while traveling, things that might trip you up while you are sleeping. And from there, you can go all the way down to southern Arctos. You also have the Cults of the Sundered Kingdoms, which were a unified kingdom many moons ago and have now splintered into small vassal states and duchies and kingdoms down there. But they're all interspersed and very close by to where there is not a lot of travel time needed from one adventure to the next to go from Bard's Gate to Rapanatha to the borderland provinces to hop across into the Cults of the Sundered Kingdoms. You can quite easily do it, or if you want to extend it, because our map and our world is so large, you could quite easily do it and have filler moments and adventures boosting your levels to get to around the level range of a particular adventure you want to run.
So, for this region, if people are not familiar with Lost Lands but want to jump in and learn about the area and learn about the setting, is this a good starter zone for them?
Absolutely. Per capita, over most of the other regions in Arctos, it has more level 1, 2, 3, and if you bump it out to 5th level and or 7th level, it has more starting adventures or adventures that begin within 1st to 3rd level and end between 5th to 7th level than any other region in the Lost Lands. Mostly because it is so centrally tied and has the most access routes or roads and rivers and passageways above and below ground to then get to anywhere else, that you could start there and then move out and branch out and the world is your oyster. Or you could end up, if you are in need of a place to get from 3rd level to 5th level but you don't necessarily have anything, you could throw them in this region. And there are quite a number of adventures and smaller adventures that you could run that are 3rd to 5th level, 3rd to 7th level, and you just kind of end cap and dovetail softly before the end of the adventure, or you shorten it and you curve tail the enemies, bosses, and NPCs to where it dovetails earlier than 7th level.
So for this region, for people to understand what the area is like, what can you tell them? Like, is it a European analogy or some other region?
It is a hodgepodge of European and North African, um, probably between 1620s at the very latest, all the way back to 1240.
Okay.
Depending on where you go, and even where you go inside a particular city or capital, because it could be slightly more English medieval in the capital and the noble districts, and you go down to the market districts, and it's a bit more Renaissance, French Renaissance, or even Italian Renaissance, more towards the 1500s. And that's in just the same city, and everything's pretty much the same, but it blends in and eases in such a way that it doesn't seem out of place. You're not Doctor Who walking out of the TARDIS from 2020 and walking into the Stone Age.
Gotcha. So for World Anvil in general, if we're adventuring here in South Central Akados, we do some of the adventures that Frog God has done. As a GM, am I able to get in and start putting in my own content that I can use with that same accessibility populating on this map?
Not currently. You can use our maps and our adventure articles to be able to run any and all adventures in that region or any connecting region. You can, with your World Anvil account, create your own adventures and articles in which you can piggyback off our information to where it curtails and is more detailed focused to your game, your adventure, your campaign, your players, and then from there be able to break down to your players individualized information and articles for what a ranger might know in this area, but not everyone else, what the cleric of a particular god or goddess might know in this area or might find out in this area, but not necessarily the rest of the party, or whether there's a thief or a rogue or an assassin in the party. They might learn a few different things that you can quite easily drop in as secrets on an article or create an entire article for that character and make it exclusive for them to where no one else sees it, and anybody else that could or might see it, they get blocked by access right permissions and are told to, thank you, your time is valuable, please go away now. This is not for you. The gods have decreed it.
So what's the accessibility on tablets or phones? Are they able to interact with this in a similar fashion to if you have the computer?
They are able to. I've done coding and I've done image reviews and QAing on our project from my phone and my tablet while traveling. It is possible. It is doable. Um, it will. Some of the pages will load slightly off depending on what your coding is and your layout is. Even the base default World Anvil layout, it is not fitted for a mobile version browser or tablet version browser, which more often than not runs mobile version. You can change it to desktop, and it does increase the size and the arrangement slightly. For larger things like our world map, it will take a moment more to load. And by a moment, I mean several moments. But it's still rather quick. But we're also talking about a world map that has over 1,300 pins, all of our cities, all of our capitals, all of our strongholds, all of our geographical areas, our region breakdown layers, to where you can see exactly where South Central Akatos is, Southwestern Akatos, Western Akatos, Northern Livernos, the Northlands, Southern Livernos, um, are all splayed out on that world map. So that is going to take quite a bit, but it is doable and is possible. Um, the interactiveness depends on how you are trying to use it. So if you are just using a touch your fingers rather than a stylus, it will take a bit of finagling and getting used to, but it is completely possible to read articles, read adventure articles, read creature stat blocks, monster stat blocks, magic items, spells, all of that from your mobile and tablet device. It just will take some getting used to. It's just like getting used to web pages that force you to mobile over a desktop
Yeah.
and how the change in layout goes.
So how have you taken this World Anvil and what you guys have there so far and used it in your own games or
Um, I started once we got one of our final versions of the world map before what we currently have, because there's been a few of those, because it's always fine tuning down to the last minute before the printer. I have taken my current online party on Fantasy Grounds from the land of Greyhawk and their home base of Sigil in Planescape to Western Akatos, where it's heavily populated, tons of hegemonies, kingdoms, duchies, lots of green, verdant forests, possibly some wardens in there, and made it their playground and told them, go east, my young man. So they are learning and rolling through that, and I've been able to not only use the regional maps, which break down those sections into slightly manageable and easier to see, and then pinpoint from there relative distances. And if you look on the map over here, this white button right below the forest, that's where you're going. You are 3 hexes down below that. Makes it super easy. On the world map, it's here are the geographic locations, here are the places of interest, here are the settlements in between where you started and where you are now and where you want to go next. From an adventure standpoint, I've simply taken a few of the adventures that I own from Frog God Games and that a few that are already up on the site and just flip the coast. So instead of being on the east coast of Akados, it's now on the west coast of Akados. And instead of being tied to these particular cities that are in uh, a few days to a week's march, it's now these cities and settlements that are in a few days to a week's march. And they loved it. They're like, oh no, is this that place where there's a TPK mega dungeon? I'm like, no, absolutely not. That is completely on the other side of the world. And I may or may not have moved that to this side of the world before we started gaming. But you've got to play to find out. This is why we love rolling dice. Gambling. It's beautiful.
Well, that's awesome. So, from what I hear, the expected launch date is going to be on the 31st of March, 2020.
Absolutely.
And so hopefully this gets into everybody's, hands real soon, and that they, can see the beautiful work that you guys have gotten in on this.
And this is quite literally just the beginning.
Yeah.
We have the setting book. We have a handful of adventures that are ready to go and be laid out. We have a massive amount of stat blocks and RNG tables, and we still have the vast majority of our back catalog of products to go through and input. They're on the block for it, and yes.
And this is why we need you to come and subscribe so that people like Sean, who are working so very, very hard to get everything up, will get paid to actually get all the content up over the next few years.
I will absolutely never turn down even more circus peanuts in payment. If you could find the 2 pound bag on Amazon, it is a quite reasonable price. And even with the extended shipping that is currently available, I am okay with that. So, yes, circus peanuts, even more.
Circus Peanuts, aka Game Books?
No, legit circus peanuts.
Oh, legit
Orange,
Circus Peanuts.
yeah, orange, pressed like a boiled peanut, marshmallow, amazing things. Been around since way before Willie Nelson was born, which is just before the Stone Age.
I know how to bribe you now. That's awesome.
Absolutely. It's very easy. The bar is super low.
Well, Sean, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to come talk to us a little bit about World Anvil. We are really happy to have had a chance to talk to you and get our feet a little more wet with everything that Frog God does. It's a lot of stuff. Overwhelming.
It's amazing how many things we end up doing in a given day and where exactly we're at. Because you can never really find us, but then every time you turn around, do you work for Frog God Games? Why, yes, I do. Thank you for noticing.
Well, I look forward to getting to know you better and talking about more of the projects that are going to be coming up. So thank you all for watching and have a wonderful day. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.